You're set to go? Okay. So good evening. Thanks for being here. It seems that our event over the weekend, combined with thesis mid-review, may have exhausted our capacity for landscape, but maybe not yet. Huh? It's a great pleasure to be able to welcome to you, and I'm learning just now, to the GSD and to Harvard University for the first time, Catherine Mosbach. As you know, we have a tradition of a Kiley lecture, and in fact the Kiley Fund now supports two kinds of programming within the school. The first and the longest tradition is the idea annually of hosting a leading international practitioner of landscape architecture, doing work at the highest level internationally. And then the more recent innovation is we've just recently launched this thing called the Kiley Fellowship. This is a teaching fellowship. It's meant to introduce kind of emerging young design talent to a full-time academic gig and to foster their research over the course of an academic year or two. And so the Kiley Fund, in support of both of these things, has been quite important to our department over the course of many, many years. You, of course, know Catherine's work. I'm going to say very, very little and make way for her to say much more. For me, what I wanted to highlight is beyond the work, or before getting to the work, the notion of her own particular intellectual formation. She had a previous degree in the natural sciences. No, I mean that was in a way your background, your origin in a way. And then after her professional formation, at a very key moment in the formation of the school at Versailles, which hopefully you can say something about the impact of your experience at Versailles, she went on to pursue a subsequent degree in social sciences and history and civilization. And this, in a way, I think you'll find evidence of that in something that she'll say about the work as well. You may also have come across her work in various settings. She's lectured and practiced in a range of really astonishing places. She has most recently received first prize in the Gateway Park competition in Taichung in Taiwan, a project that maybe you can say something about, which is really an extraordinary piece of work about climate and locality and energy in relationship to public space. As a member of the jury for that project, I was really, really taken by this piece of work and what it proposed as a terrain for discussing energy and climate in the context of landscape architecture. If you haven't yet seen that project, maybe you're aware of her work at the Bordeaux Botanical Garden or other projects in France. You may have seen that project in the Groundswell show and catalog at MoMA. You also find it on the cover of a recent monograph of her work just recently published by Green Vision Traversée, Crossing ICA Interface. Please welcome Catherine Mosbach.
Hello everyone, I am very glad to speak about landscape with you, thanks to Charles Waldheim. I opened this talk with a zoom and we close it with a general view. If we landscaper can understand the process bridging both microbial fabric and macrobial fabric, we may be able to introduce new kind of landscaping. I would like to address landscape experimentation we are following at the moment. On one hand, Louvre-Lens at France, a context coming from a very long span of accumulation, and on the other hand, Gateway Park in Taiwan, a large range of artificial climatic resorts proposed as attractive outdoors places for a new district. Can we? Very shortly, for you to understand the dialectic on both developments. The Louvre-Lens issue, developed with Sana, is located on a natural resource area where the coal industry fashioned the land for industrial and domestic uses. The 19th century transformed the coal coming from the Earth's depths on an industrial powerful system. The economics of extracting organize the layout of the areas used for the production and transportation of material, as well as for the living areas by creating a large territorial with housing lots, gardening, school, hospital, church, etc., all around the pit head. Mid of 20th century, the bygone economy let the pit head return to the vitality of a planned recolonization world with spontaneous dynamic of a pioneer forest on the west and a large open meadows area in the center, punctually appropriated by modest factory until the Louvre competition spring 2005. The 21st century will introduce the dimension of art with the Louvre brand, a new landscape process transforming the slack heap on a museum park in the center of an urban renewal based on the so typically city garden fashion by the coal industry. The Gateway Park, developed with Philippe Ram, not yet in construction, contrasting the Louvre project and may be similar as Bordeaux Botanical Garden, the landscape work takes place on an airport area without any specific urban context engaged before that function. On that place, the process through which the landscape design project is shaped will precisely work with a new district impact planned by Stan Allen that introduce delicate condition of outdoor places to engage the future inhabitants by living with natural and artificial pieces of land. The climate on the shore is more extreme, uncomfortable in certain seasons, being very hot and very humid, while the mountain climate is more temperate and comfortable, fresher all year long because of their altitude. For these reasons, enjoying outdoor spaces in Taichung is practically impossible during certain seasons as the air is too hot and it rains too frequently. Thus, the inhabitants prefer to take refuge in the interior air conditioning of buildings. The landscape processes combines here nature and artifice, technological input and natural resources in a sense of a soft way to enjoy comfortable outdoor places under subtropical climate. Both projects are involved with cultural facilities, engaged with large urban renewal area. Both projects manage landscape as the main concerns to work together art, architecture, economic, history, and urban development. Let's go for Louvre. The Louvre Museum Park sits on a horizontal slack heap, storage mode for the exploitation rebut, going up to 4 meters above the adjoining parcels. Even so, the industrial production is stopped. The transformation of the material is always active with gaze, blurs, and strays on the surface of sinks. The area is in the middle of large territorial mesh connected by those orange lines. The rider seams, French names Cavalier, the system that initially divided each district turned around his specific slack heap. The Louvre area is here, and all these main orange areas are pit heads, generally are transformed in cultural facilities. Return the whole things by investing a territory that offers a mesh of connected platforms, cultural facilities, and alleys for the urban development directly connected by paths to the entrance of the museum's parks. So all that cavaliers are coming directly to the center of the building, the entrance of the museum. Winter 2008, open space is generously exposed under snow when no shadows or contrast divide the continuity of the terrain. The Cavalier, the rider seams. Curves of edges and emptiness of clearings were first explored by the First Stones events, the 1st December 2009. The survey level transit, usually used by the surveyors, to begin the construction supervisions, show that the site is large and not as much as desired. This was the first reality between architecture and landscape, as the main concerns for this museum park is generous flows from east to west, crossing the foyer entrance of the museum. The clearing is large and at the same time becomes suddenly very small as everything constructed introduces a handmade scale that improves the distance between what we discover and our body. The problematic of the scale becomes more than visible with the earthwork by introducing the basement construction. The construction process makes suddenly everything smaller. At the same time, the construction site makes visible what everyone has forgotten. The soil resource is not only coal coming from the depths, but a very large, high-quality silt strata, you see here, 4 meters underground. Dig and fill expose on the air the material occupying the emptiness of the clearing and open up the life process from plants' work. Only 1 year was necessary for water and plants growth to appropriate the soil scarification. This is always the material coming from the basement. This is typically what the project proposed to highlight. The different layers of history, stratification, and native resource re-exposed to the sunlight becomes a new material to be drawn by the museum park process, and especially the art layer. Here you see much more clearly the schist, what is a rebut of the coal, and the other material. It is then the question of interwoven through this program, the vegetable dynamic that primed the attractivity of the terrain, the last layout, the cultural dynamic with the museum itself, the event platforms, the soft ties of Cavalier, and finally the memory of the mining base, what is the first level. Of the cycle of plants materials to value plants as an economic resource, then in an inverted symmetry of the oil to be valued plants as active heritage. The landscape process exposed the movements of geological installation, pedologic and vegetable. On a very simple way, we do want that these new cultural facilities recover everything happened before. This elongated form print of the distribution method of industrial flows deflected the manner of installing itself in the ground plate. The abandoned rails were the premier niches of vegetable recolonization that in 20 years of abandonment have engaged a pioneer forest to the west and faunistic and floral corridors between fragmented and controlled territories by the mines of the hold of the border cavaliers. The museum park irrigates the country in depths, the same as the garden cities are all naturally brought to the threshold of the museum. We propose that the visitor replace the footprint in the industrial active remains so that they discover spontaneously by his own movements the memory of threads until the piece of art in the gallery. Here you have the foyer is the principal entrance of the museum, the gallery, and the green large paths are the main entrance on the north, the east, the west, and the south. There is no back and no front. The park invites the visitors to engage the movements, to explore a building enhancing the landscape rather than occupying. This It is the Radisson transformed to the main entrance alley of the museum park. To introduce the memory of that horizontal and vertical transformation, we use the earthwork as the main ingredient for landscape. On one hand, the mountain of silt behind become an enclosure in the front, colonized by mosses and trees boundary. As architect and landscaper, we do prefer no limit. As we need to protect the precious Louvre pieces of art, we do propose to organize the earth in a vertical way to dissolve the limit into landscape and trees thresholds. The enclosure. Sometimes it doesn't happen like we would like. And the beginning of the Moss colonization after 1 year. On the other hand, all mineral area around the foyer is here in the mid, and the galleries are regularly perforated with pockets of draining stones, mineral storage. It's the same as clusters of drops that capture water, retain it, infiltrate it, and bring the excess to the strip gardens. These perforations will be favored substrate of mosses, which have the ability to capture and to fix heavy metals to the soils and actually to reduce the ambient dust. The west part of the museum park, the west pavilion, the foyer, so is the principal entrance as drawn as a public space, and the east pavilion. The east entrance of the foyer. Among the reception installations, the benches are greens canopies, that one. Grass hemlines around sand beaches on the pavilion, or yet monoliths on excavated leaning places in the lay garden, the west pavilion. An excuse to picnic supporting pedagogical association to the temporary exhibits of the galleries, gardens as memories of plant cycle to oil or simple neighborhood garden exposed due south. So the mixed soils with shrubs, grass, concrete and perforation. And the micro garden are lay, as the French names, polysemous concept from the French language that transfers temporality. On one hand, the tools and uses as it designated, as well as terrain, where water of sea or of rivers are left in its retraction, as a young tiller leaves a cutting in order to become tree in a forest of all trees, as a cow path, as a stone cutter hammer, as a narrative poem from the Middle Age, etc. The continuity from outside and in, from built and unbuilt park and garden cities, art and architecture's economy and urban development, reality and vision, is one of the key points of the work developed together by Sana and our team since 6 years until now. This vision is made visible under the season. Snowscape will bring back to the clearing without any interruption and a total abstract vision. Always the enclosure and the north part. The neighborhood, city gardens. One of the galleries, the temporality gallery. The regular season proposed to discover differently building part and art and to move in between in the different way proposed. So the main building as the foyer is in glass, so totally transparent from east to west. And a very important work is done on the gallery facade in aluminium that reflected the garden and mixed garden and architectures. The west facade I punctuated the Louvre chapter with this modest visual from Sana's competition drawing. I think the reality will be very near from that simple drawing, so that retaining the visions in a constructed word or in a document, for real or in a picture, of times when landscape and event intersects within the limits of a memory that unfolds and permeates the medium in which it is held. Let's follow on. The Gateway Park in Taiwan. Taiwan Island belongs to a very sensitive area where the lithosphere is a work in progress and where one of the largest marine current, Kuroshivo, has a great influence of the island climate. We try to understand precisely the topographic dynamic of the island coming from the depths of the ocean to the top of the mountain, especially in connection with the water resource in regards of the steepness of the slope east and west. The island is here, and here you have the ocean. The park area that is here is on the foothills of the mountains. With deforestation and steep slopes, rainwater is running weight to the ocean. On the other hand, the hard surface of the airports, here in the mid, brings all rainwater in the city wastewater network. Our Gateway Park introduced soil porosity and retention, topographic beds, temporary submersive, so that the soil of the park infiltrated the rainwater where it falls to nourish the superficial layers of the soil and more deeply the water table. At the same time, it introduced the biodiversity between vegetation, animals, and human beings. So this is the scheme of the project. The topographic beds are proposed in regards of two parameters. So these are the names of the topographic beds. On one hand, the soil is a technical tool for grading the porosity more or less dense, according to the uses and the capacity to capture water. On the other hand, the topography opened views onto the town and created landscape horizons resting at this extreme, at this time of each road perspective. The rainwater flows is reorganized in a succession of topographic beds that infiltrate each nearest district area. This partition proposes the versatility of recreational appropriation in dry period and a landscape morphing that is loaded in mousson period. This means that all these blue areas can be just grass meadows appropriable by recreational programmatic. The one is a regular time, the second is an irregular event, and the third one is 80% of the park is covered by rainwater. Is a really exceptional happened every 100 years around. In connection with the topographic beds, the soil porosity gradient determines the coefficient of surface runoff to retain and orient the retention areas or the temporary submersive areas. Topographic beds and porosity gradients oriented the different soil qualities in urban context. So is the master plan. It is used to have 100% hard surface or 100% porous area. Our Gateway Park proposed a large panel of porosity gradient named mixed soil, combining vegetation and mineral, especially in connection with the cultural facilities, the different museums. Very simplified, the porosity is determined by the numbers of emptiness inside a hard surface so that the water infiltrates more or less quickly in the superficial soil layers. To illustrate that, we propose two major areas in the park. The north terrace is the conventional terrace for conventional centers, and the college green corridor, both treated by a mixed soil, mineral, vegetal, evoked by a grand mosaic with two transects significant of the formation of the island, one in the north, here, second in the south, raising the reliefs of seabeds both crossed by the Kuroshivo current. In the green corridor, the second one, fluid material of the soils is associated a dynamic nocturnal lighting projection of the surface marine current registered on life by satellite every day. A detail of the mosaic pavement with a gradient from very thin to very large. We highlight the standalone master plan with 5 main rhythms. Resource pole on the north. Sorry, it doesn't work. Okay.
Try this one. This bottom button here. You can use that one. The bottom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here, it's going better. Resource pole on the north of dry energy with wind turbines, transformation of the wind for elimination of the entire sites, or green energy production of hardy plants of the parks and recycling of green waste for all districts. Both are guided by the maintenance services of the city and animated, the maintenance service, by a flower market in connection with the residential districts on the west. So all that is a large residential district. The continuity of the parks run under the conventional center. Here, a hill near the movie museum, the city movie museum is here, receives the water from the esplanade to a large fountain with epiphyte plants. The park, with a succession of valley, plants, plateau, where the movement of the earth organizes very precisely the valorization of rainwater. They put the visitors, including in high water, in a heightened position to overview of the parks morphing inside the district. The green corridor is here, connected the educational pole to the high technologic one on the east part, with a generous open transit from west to east, day and night. A water pool here, dedicated to the domestic water treatment before returning to the river. The park transforms who traverse it in their closer radiation. We consider the immediate influence of the park on adjoining transit so much by certain devices exported in the bordering street of the public area and establishment. You have to imagine that all that, this was the airport area, and all that will be new district, new development in the future. So today is nothing, it's just empty. And the drawing for the park is directly connected with the influence of this new district. So we just speak about the lithosphere, the soil design process. We'll begin about the atmosphere. The island possesses a hot and humid subtropical, as said before, climate. Due to the hot climatic condition, high humidity and air pollution, people in Taisho prefer to spend more time in air-conditioned environments like shopping malls and restaurants. The goal of our design is to create comfortable outdoor green spaces to welcome people back to the nature and simultaneously increase the usage frequency of the park. The park is around 70 hectares, so it was not possible to imagine that we do so large attractive area without any people inside because just of subtropical humid climate. To do that, we propose to investigate 3 meteorological maps, one for the heat, one for the humidity, and one for the polluted. it is like the massif will bring back the more agreeable temperature of really at the top of the mountain to Taichung at July. So here you have the impact of the district on the park area. You can imagine that the white area is, without doing nothing, the more comfortable, and the darker pink area is the more uncomfortable. The park design just introduced a range of devices to accentuate the comfort of that area. The range of these devices to work with the heat. Most of the devices are trees, but other of them are much more furniture for the park. So the existing condition, the park accentuates the area where it is less hot by introducing a range of devices with a gradient from 100% to 20%. You can see that the techniques can be high technologic, but can be very traditional one, like that one. And then the visitors discovers a kind of climatic resort and shows the place in the day they want to visit. Same process for humidity design. It is like as if we return the soft, dry air of the north of the mountain in the middle of the month of July. So this is the reference of the humidity coming from the mountain. The humidity is directly connected with the topographic bed we developed for the water management and the range of devices who accentuate the humidity and introduce a very specific design for that park. And finally, the pollution design is directly combined with the road traffic of the park. The road in project from the standalone plan, covering mostly by pastorals and small mountains. The range of devices, the trees, the furniture, and much more specific installation. The overlapping from the four maps gives specific climatic resorts. And all combined gives a master plan. Programs follows climates. The leisure programs go in low heat areas. So you can have warm, humid, polluted, cold, dry, clean, warm, humid, polluted, warm, humid, clean, etc. And the indoor programs go in high heat areas, so where you have climatic regulation. The City Movies Museum, the City Museum, and the Taiwan Tower win by Fujimoto. As we have a range of very contrast climatic, we propose to invite an artist per climate typologic. So as example, an European one, a Taiwanese one, and each artist, here we propose 8 one, will propose his own interpretation from the climatic resource. 3 main paths will introduce the very specific climatic stations and a direct connections with sensors that propose to the visitors on the main entrance of the park the situation they can find in the different parts of the park's areas. Here you are on the north parts, and you feel the topographic beds full of regular mussons, rain. One of the passerelle, landscape passerelle, crossing a road from east to west. And on the top of the mountain in front of the Taiwanese tower. Our project is essential and necessary one today to bring well-being and health to the inhabitants of big metropolitan cities. What we really want to offer to the people of Taichung is sensual experiences, a great outdoor area where one can feel good, can spend good time away from the heat and the rain, where you can relax away from noise and pollution, where you could have fun in the open air with your children. And the final drawing in connection with the first zoom is the bridging between micro and macro spaces. Thank you very much. It's good.
Thank you very much for your presentation. My question is, what impact do the surrounding buildings in the park have from a heat perspective? Did that measure into the calculation? How much reflective heat from the sun? And in a sense, also do the programs on the first level surrounding the park, how much does that also influence what sort of activities happen on the perimeter of the park? So basically, I'm asking what impact do the actual buildings around the park in Taiwan have an influence on, one, the heat, and two, the program inside the park?
The drawing I show you is a competition drawing. So it is mainly an architect and landscape drawings, not an engineer's drawing. So as we begin the things very seriously, we will work with an engineer. Maybe you know it, it's Transolar climatic engineering. And they will propose us, okay, it's not perfect as the buildings are not constructed, so there is no more project, just a standalone master plan. So we need to find a way to enhance the situation about the high, the wind, the shadow, especially with the Taiwanese tower. The Taiwanese tower makes 300 meters high, so we need to play with that different parameters, and that will give the three layers, and with that we will propose the programs and the drawing of the humidity. No, the humidity is directly in combination with the rainwater, something different, but especially the air conditions with the heat and polluted situation. So maybe what I show will be radically transformed because when we do the competition, the Taiwanese tower was not choiced. The Fujimoto project was not choiced, and we will evolve like for the competition. Just mix the four layers and propose a new adapted park in connection with the district. Is in connection, but it's not exactly deductive because he has to be coherent for the park too. The park is a project for himself. It's not only deductive. It's not like done by a machine or just a computer. It needs to be a little bit more think about. But I cannot explain. We need to do, and after I can explain later.
Hi. Thanks, first of all. The project with the Louvre was a really beautiful work with subtraction and patience. So I almost feel like I'm defiling it by asking this question, but in subtracting and leaving that kind of bare soil and that bare coal slag substrate, in the project, how did you work with the detrimental sedimentation and the kind of, how did you work with the material to keep it from moving off-site, first of all, and did you think about the interaction between the people on the site and some of the toxins in that material as it was exposed to them or will be exposed to them as they inhabit that park?
Yeah, it's a huge question. You know, when you begin a project, you have an idea and you follow that direction to go on your goal. And mostly you have to adapt it because maybe you are the only one who understands what you want to do, especially for landscape. And especially when you have a museum named Louvre, because so they chose, it was a jury, it was a competition for the place. So you had many cities proposed a place to have that museum, and they chose, curiously, that place because the building could be in the middle of the park. So this was a choice of the jury, but in fact, because it's nice to have a nice building in a nice park, it's just that. But in fact, they want a museum, they want a building, and they don't want to know what they have to do with the park. So we are very lucky with the work with Sana because since the beginning, some drawing I show you are drawing for competition, so 2005. And Sana was in Tokyo and we were in Paris, so we do all the urban development and we send every week our work to Tokyo so they can see what they can do with that. And we propose that to the client. The Louvre understand what could be as a powerful combination between a building and a park, but maybe there was the only one. So the client is the regent. It's not the Louvre as a client. It's the building is a rent. It's not the owner. The Louvre is not the owner. It's like the Guggenheim or in Sao Paulo. And so yes, a landscaper do the translation about what a landscaper can understand on the situation, but the economy situation in that region is really, really dramatic because nobody has job. Everyone is lost because they spend so much time, so much generation to work on the mine system, and suddenly no more work. So this makes people lost. So it's very strange to introduce so high-level culture facilities with a park, and people all around have no jobs. So it's a very difficult contrast. So you're right when you said, okay, what people are thinking when you propose them to see the coal, and when you propose them to see the ground, they're not happy because they don't want to see that because it's a dramatic history for them. But this is a short history in the short time. So landscape need very long time to be understandable for everyone. So, and maybe for the client too, because you can see, this is the reason of the title, Landscape on Trial, because a construction site like that kind of building is very aggressive and demolish everything. So when you have some very nice trees, you can just dream about because the next time they are just cut because nobody see the landscape delicateness. And it's our work, it's our material, so you're just very sad that nobody see what you want to show. But in fact, this is, like you said, passion to work. And maybe at the final, as the concept of the project combined very nearly architecture and landscape and the size of the whole terrain, I think at the final, with time work, so it means maybe 2, 3, 5 years, the reality will come back and give us back what you lost in between. I hope so. I don't know if I give answer on your question.
Yeah, thank you. Very impressive presentation. Actually, as we know, there is a long history and a huge legacy of French landscape. We're looking forward to hearing more voice about the French landscape architect. And also we're looking forward to discovering several unique characters in the modern French landscape design. So how do they define the modern and contemporary French landscape design, and what's the future of them?
When I come out from school, we created with some friends a magazine, Page Paysage. And because it's not so old, maybe 20 years, the French landscape school. And it was an academic teaching for horticulture engineer in Versailles, because Versailles is very important since a while for horticulture because of the park of Versailles. And it comes here, a teacher named is Michel Courageux, who comes from Les Beaux-Arts, and who worked a lot with Jacques Simon, who was the son of forestier, I don't know the name in English. Yeah, a guy who works in forest. And both do a very large revolution and wanted to change everything in that horticulture engineering school. And both together introduce a new generation of landscape architects. The people who work today and have a very impact in French and in international comes from both people. But okay, this was one time, and as you know, the landscape is changing very regularly. Nothing is stable. Maybe less stable as architecture, I don't know. But when we discover the teaching from that guys and we learn a lot, or maybe we can say we learn not to know what we learn, what is very difficult. And when we come out the school, we just know that we know nothing, that we just need to learn everything. And it's not comfortable, you know, when you come out of high school and you just go, you are looking for a job and oh my God, I know nothing. I have just to begin at the beginning. But it's not comfortable, but it's very helpful because you have to construct everything. So you have to imagine why you do that choice. Why you do that choice, you have to explain. And this is maybe the best tools not to do something academic solution. What happens mostly when you go out from school, you just draw what someone learned you to do. What is the worst situation? Because you can do that the whole life and it becomes very ugly. So what happens often? But we propose so this landscape magazine just to continue to learn by doing a job and just to mix. I think the most important experience for me is that the connection between the different disciplines. Courageux and Jacques Simon were very important about practice, about intuition, about the way to develop a project, to let everything open. But maybe the theoretical point of view were not so important. And I found that part in École des hautes études en sciences sociales with Georges Lieberman, Bernard Lepetit, a lot of people, Monsieur Marin. So were used to do research in science scope topic. And this helps a lot to organize your thoughts, because if not, you just do what you feel, but you don't know what you do. So today, maybe, I don't know if it's the main current in France, I'm not sure. So you have many people, a lot of offices, but in reality, okay, maybe from abroad it's one direction, but in reality it's not one direction. Maybe the most important in France is that you are very careful about the context, and you work with the context and you do a project with the context, what is not maybe the same in US or in other countries. Probably is one of the main difference about French landscape. But as nothing is stable, you know, this is what we speak before I begin the lecture. Landscape needs the project for Louvre, it's 10 years. The project of Bordeaux, 10 years. The project of Solo, 10 years. It takes a lot of time, and the time work for you, but a human being is 10 years is a lot for one person. So maybe we are not numbers enough to learn about what we do. It's not enough project in general, not only in France. I mean in general, in international. We need to be more people to do much more project to learn about what we are doing. And so this was for the future, maybe for you. But yeah, I don't know if I give an answer.
Thanks very much. I also really enjoyed your lecture. And I wanted to ask a question about method. The topic of micro and macro seemed to run throughout. And I felt as if the middle ground was edited out a lot, that you're always working, you're talking a lot about details, and you're working very much at a very abstract level, and that the work is somehow stretched between that. I even felt like that in the way you talk about your work, that you talk about details and you talk about very abstract things, and you almost don't show us images of the work. You show us details of materials and you show us plans at a very far distance. And I think there's something very powerful about that method, about stretching landscape architecture between a very abstract examination of things and a very, very material examination of things. Of course, they both dwell on context, as you said, but there's something about the distance between the editing out of that middle ground that seems to be very powerful.
Before I go to Versailles, I do biology, science, and chemical and physical in Strasbourg. So maybe it comes from there. So to do a project, for me, the project is just a tool to understand the situation and to combine things together. So it's a way to propose what you understand of the situation. And it's very easy to fall down in academic shaping and morphing. Very, very easy. So the only way for me, maybe not for everyone, to don't take that risk is to work always on different scales and just to understand the things. It's just because to propose a project, you need to understand what you do and why you do. Maybe it can be very intuitive, but at the final, when you want to draw something alive that can accept the transformation, because that's the reality of landscape, we have to propose something that accepts everything, and it works with everything. And this is maybe looks like strange, but for me, a park is a success when that happens, when it's going better and better because the time is working. Like your face is not stable. Every day you change. You don't know it, but you change every day. But when you said that, it's very you be anxious. Oh my God, I have to draw something change every day. I will die. So you cannot die. But for me, the way to do is just to understand the connection between the very micro and because it's a way to let the things open. Because if you go to a microscopic micro vision, it's always in movement. What is stable from outside is always in movement, and this fascinated me because this makes the things alive, just alive. And so after that, it's just a tool to introduce movement in open space and outdoors. Maybe it's an utopia, I don't know, probably, but it helps me to do it, because if not, I don't know how I do.